On this episode of Locked On Angels, Anthony Santander, Pete Alonso, or both? Let's discuss each free agent the Angels have been rumored to be in on. Haven't they been in on everybody? And we're going to give you our opinions on who makes sense for our Angels. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Angels are in on Barry Bonds. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and help us to reach 10K by opening day. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And the NFL playoffs are almost here. This is the last weekend of the regular season, but it's not too late to get in on that regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third offseason here at Locked On Angels. We're getting ready and gearing up for our fourth full season here in 2025. Right now, we're doing 3 days a week in terms of episodes, but we will ramp back up to 5 days a week when pitchers and catchers report. On today's show, will Anthony Santander be an Angel? Should we sign another Anthony? What about Pete Alonso? They've also been rumored to be connected to Pete Alonso. What do we think is the best move? The move that makes the most sense for the Angels? Mike and I will give you our opinions on that in segment 3, but we thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at Santander and Pete Alonso, kind of give you a breakdown of who each player is, where they've been, and what they could offer the Halos in 2025. Mike, let's start with Anthony Santander. It should be Anthony. If it's
Anthony, yeah.
It should be Anthony, right? There we go.
Okay, so Santander is a switch-hitting right fielder, and this is the first time he's been a free agent. He was with the Baltimore Orioles, just trying to save time, for the last 8 seasons. Over the last 3 years, John, he's played at least 152 games each season. Look at this slash line: 244, a 317 on base, a 478 slugging, and a 795 OPS, a 125 OPS plus, which means that he's 25% better than league average. On average, over the last 3 seasons, he's scored 83 runs. He's had 30 doubles, 35 home runs, 56 walks, 137 Ks. Now, just last year, John, one of his best years, if not his best year in the power department, a 235 batting average, a 308 on base, a 506 slugging, which is great, and an 814 OPS, a 134 OPS plus, again, 34% better than league average, 44 home runs, and 102 RBIs. And John, he's not just a left-handed batter, he's actually a switch hitter, and that could potentially benefit the Halos.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the Halos rumored to be looking for a left-handed power bat. Santander would fit that profile. In fact, his career versus right-handed pitching, which would put him on the left-handed side of the plate, a 243 average, 302 on base, 470 slugging, a 772 OPS. His career versus lefties, 253, 320 on base, 467 slugging, 786 OPS. So he's about even from each side of the plate, Mike, which is something you like to see, just consistency. But last year, he crushed right-handed pitching, meaning he would make for a great lefty bat. He had 32 home runs just against right-handed pitching, a 513 slugging percentage, and 77 runs batted in.
Wow. And he's mainly a right fielder, but Johnny, he can play first base in a pinch. Actually played it pretty well. As a right fielder, he has a career ultimate zone rating of 4.6. So that kind of takes into account everything that he can do out in the outfield. Last year, He was a 1.4. He was a -2 outs above average and a -7 defensive run saved last year. Joe Adell, on the contrary, was much better as a right fielder last year. Now, that was in 2024, but in 2023, he had a 0 outs above average and a +3 defensive run saved. He's been a really poor left fielder in his career, a -7.8 ultimate zone rating in left field.
So you're saying don't put him in left field.
Don't do it.
Let's not do that. He's not going to be in front of the trout farm, that's for sure. Some considerations that we should all be thinking about when it comes to Anthony Santander. I almost said Anthony again. If he signs, that's going to be a thing.
Anthony.
He's about a 20% K rate guy.
Yeah.
Under the league average with 19.4% K rate in 2024. League average was 22.6. So I'd like to see that under the league average. Exit velocity, Mike. This is how you know if a guy is, I don't know, aging at the plate, losing it at the plate. And the good news is he's stayed around 90 miles per hour average exit velocity over the course of his career. So he's not losing anything there. The swing isn't dwindling or anything like that. And so that's a good sign that he's not aging poorly, especially now that he's 30 years old. His hard hit percentage did drop, but it dropped from a career high 46% in 2023 to 41.6% in 2024. Something we really have to consider here, Mike. He's going to cost a draft pick. He was offered a qualifying offer from the Orioles. It would cost a second rounder. Something else to consider, maybe this is the year to kind of eat that second round pick, considering the Angels have the number 2 overall pick this year. You can kind of see an argument of, hey, you know what? We might miss out on the second round pick, but we do have the number 2 overall pick and we can get who we want at that spot.
Which, by the way, and we just saw that yesterday, that Jace Lavalette has now moved up to the potential number 1 pick.
Right.
And
from Baseball America. Yeah.
Ethan Holiday is now number 2, according to Baseball America. So that's going to jump around even more as we get closer, but just something to keep an eye on. And that has nothing to do with this conversation, but it does have everything to do with the draft. And if the Angels get somebody really great at that number 2 pick, you bring up a great question that I think we should wrestle through in just a minute. But is this the year that they give up that second round pick?
Yeah. The other consideration you have to make is the slot money that they would miss out on.
Yes.
Which is, to spread around the draft and also taking a hit in the international bonus pool money as well if they sign Santander with the qualifying offer. Mike, MLB Trade Rumors says that Santander would get 4 years, $80 million. That's about $20 million a year. The Athletic says it would be 5 years, $105 million. So that's $21 million a year. Also, 5 outfielders.
Yeah.
Hold on. Trout, Santander, Soler, kinda, Ward, Joe Adell, Moni. 6 outfielders. What are we doing? Okay. Yeah. So also take that into consideration as we talk about this question. What do you like and what's concerning to you? What do you say?
Well, what I like is his left-handed bat in Angel Stadium. Hitting doubles off of that right field wall, potentially getting home runs off of the lowered home run wall. Plus, there's that small porch in right field. You get it around that pole, and you're getting a home run every single time. Just a little high pop fly to right field for Santander could be a 3-run home run in a pivotal moment for the Angels.
You do like that his numbers against right-handed pitching are strong, and the fact that he's going to be batting from the left side and he did so much damage from that side, that's a very good thing, especially if he's hitting out toward that right field wall as well.
Yeah. What I think is concerning, John, is the on-base percentage. That's low, and I know that he doesn't strike out worse than league average, but he does have the strikeout in his game. And then his defensive numbers are just not fantastic. He was great, not great, maybe average 2 years ago. And so if you put him out there, you're probably not going to want to put him in a position where he's not great. So he's probably in right field. So does that mean that your best outfielder, Joe Adell, moves to left field? And then does that mean that there is a trade happening with Taylor Ward? Because you can't have 6 outfielders. You can't have one of these guys in the minor leagues because they've been playing all at the major league level. And so you have to make a trade if you sign Santander. And so obviously the first name that comes up is Taylor Ward. Is he going to go? But John, do you think that it's not Taylor Ward and that it might be somebody like Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak?
Oh yeah, I could see both of those guys being on the trade block. And right now, Joe Adell certainly has more value, I think, than Mickey Moniak. I think he's got more of an upside, especially based on what we saw last year. Oh man, now you're making me wrestle with this. If Santander gets signed and everybody's saying 4 to 5 years, I mean, that's about the time that Joe Adell's arbitration years run out with the Angels. So do you want a cheaper, affordable guy who's playing a better defense and you're banking on the potential of him getting better, which I think he will, and I think he figured something out last year? Or do you go with a guy who's 30 years old, is going to be here until 35, and, isn't going to be in the outfield that whole time, Mike, especially with Trout DHing as well as needed as the years go on. So lots of things to consider there. What I do like about Santander is maintaining the pace in terms of, the exit velocity. There's no signs here that concern me about Santander where it's like, oh, he's going to regress, he's going to suck. There's nothing really there that sets off any alarm bells for me. So that's what I do like about this signing and this potential rumor of the Angels being connected to him. I love the switch hitting, and the Angels certainly could use that left-handed side of the bat from Santander as well. So as we continue to consider Santander, we're going to consider Pete Alonso. And we want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on the show, Pete Alonso over at first base. We're going to talk about that. And then at the end, we'll decide, who do we prefer, Alonso or Santander? We'll get to all of that in just a minute.
Well, the NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer, you can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways that you can pick up the big win. Not only can you pick who's going to actually win the game, but you can also bet on who's going to score a touchdown, how many points they're going to score, so much more. Just check out their app or go to their website, FanDuel.com. You can join there today. Again, FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team. Thank you for this. But yes, if you want to help us out, get some Super Halo Bros merch. There's Angels related stuff. There's Halo Bros related stuff. Hop in the link in the episode description. It'll take you where you need to go.
The Polar Bear is in talks with a lot of different teams, but one of the names that has come up, Johnny, is the Angels. Pete Alonso and the Angels. Now, before we go any further,
yes, I know what you're going to say. Say it.
Here's I'm dropping some grain of salt on
yes.
For those of you on the audio side, you're not seeing it. I'm putting grain of salt because this all comes from John Heyman. So he's a noted Scott Boras shill.
Yes.
He's always throwing out teams, seemingly trying to help.
Who did he talk to in New York and he got mad on the radio? Did you hear that?
I didn't know. I didn't.
Oh, so somebody made a joke about him. Hey, how much of a contract cut are you going to get of Soto's contract when he signs because of Boras and da. And he took it so seriously, and he's like, "I'm not going to talk to you guys again." And he goes, "I can't even believe it." And then before he hangs up on him, he goes, "I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it." And hung up. And I kid you not, that was his voice when he hung up. So please go on Twitter and look up that clip because I can't even believe it.
Who was he talking to? Was it a
a New York guy on the radio. And
now he's got a great audio clip.
Well, and he even said after, he's like, "I didn't mean to, I was making a joke." So yeah, it was pretty funny.
When the Mets lose, when the Yankees lose, that's going to be I can't even believe it.
I can't even believe it. But you're right. He is he's on the payroll for Boris. That's what
Yeah.
it feels like, because
Feels like
Scott Boris, of course, a huge agent for many of the top players like Juan
Right.
Soto, right? Garrett Cole, all of that stuff. I think he's even Joe Adell's agent, actually. Good for Joe Adell. He'll get paid when he hits free agency.
Right.
But all of that to say, it always seems like information about Scott Boras clients comes from John Heyman. And so that's why we say take this with a grain of salt, because sometimes the Angels are added to the conversation so that another team goes, oh, well, maybe we need to jump on Pete Alonso and pay him a little more. So we often think, and Angel fans often think, that the Angels get used, especially by Boras and Heyman, to ramp up the price of somebody signing with another team. So all that to say, let's get into the idea of Pete Alonso signing with the Angels.
Yeah, so we all know he's a first baseman, right-handed hitter, spent his whole career with the Mets. He's been an all-star in 4 out of 5 seasons. There was no all-star game in 2020 due to COVID, so that's why he wasn't an all-star that year. Rookie of the year in 2019. In his career, Johnny, 249 batting average, 339 on base, a 514 slugging percentage, and an 854 OPS. He had a 134 OPS plus over his career, 34% better than league average. But 2024, John, was considered a quote-unquote down year for Pete Alonso. 240 batting average, a 329 on base, 459 slugging, and a 788 OPS. Had a 123 OPS plus, 23% better than league average. 91 runs scored, 34 home runs, 88 RBIs. 14 of his 34 home runs came with runners on. Had a 232 average with runners in scoring position. 105 games batting cleanup, which was his best spot in the order. 252 batting average, 341 on base, 479 slugging, and an 819 OPS. And John, he has the strikeout in his game. He's got the walk in his game. 24.7% K rate last year. In his career, 22.8, 10.1% walk rate last year, 9.9 in his career. So that was a bit better. His expected batting average is 242. It puts him in the 36th percentile. And his expected slugging percentage last year, 461, which was in the 82nd percentile. John, something that you just talked about in the first segment with Santander, the numbers for Pete Alonso when it comes to average exit velo and those types of things are pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, over the last 3 years, he's been between 89.5 miles per hour and 89.8. So that's been consistent. Mike, he played in all 162 games last year.
Yeah.
Had 160 at first base, 1 at DH, and then 1 as a pinch hitter. One of the starts at first base, he did come out in the first inning, but he's never missed more than 10 games in a season. And he's always there, rarely hurt. You can always count on him to start. That's something you like. This is a healthy guy, right?
Yeah.
This isn't, you're not going to sign him and it's going to turn into Anthony Rendon situation where his body falls apart, because, Anthony Rendon was fairly healthy with the Nationals, but he did have his injuries here and there.
Yeah.
But with Alonso, it feels like you can count on him to kind of be a pillar of health and be out there for you each day.
Yeah. Now, he is a first baseman playing first base. He is a negative 3.6 ultimate zone rating in his career. However, John, last year was a bit better, had a 0.4 ultimate zone rating, so that was better than his career average. -3 defensive runs saved and negative outs, 8 outs above average. So for reference, Nolan Shawnuel had a negative 1.4 UZR last year. Again, Pete Alonso, 0.4 was a positive. Shawnuel had 1 defensive run saved and a -5 above outs above average. So he was better in both of those categories than Pete Alonso was at first base.
That's right. But he also didn't hit 34 home runs last season. So
and he's never hit 50 in his career either.
More considerations as we talk about Santander and Alonso. Mike, qualifying offer.
Yep.
It stands again. Lose a second-round pick, lose that slot money, lose some international bonus pool money. So if the Angels do sign Pete Alonso, it would cost them that second-round pick. MLB Trade Rumors has him at about 5 years, $125 million. That's $25 million a year across those 5 years. The Athletic has him for 5 years, $130 million, which would be $26 million a year. So it does seem like the projections agree that it's going to be, in the mid 20s there. He is 30 years old, so that's something to take into consideration. By the way, let me get this out of the way right now. I know people like to say the Angels sign these guys that are 30 plus. That's what free agency is.
Yeah.
Free agency.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you have a Juan Soto being a free agent at 26 years old. Bryce Harper did it because he came up so early. Juan Soto did it because he came up so early. Those Nationals got something going on with bringing up guys real early, maybe because they picked so high in the draft, just like this year they get the number 1 pick.
Right.
But that is to say, very rarely does anybody become a free agent before 29, right?
Yeah.
And so Alonso being 30 years old, it makes a lot of sense. One thing that I think we need to consider, and you brought his name up, what do we do with Nolan Schanuel?
Yeah.
John Heyman suggested that he'd be moved to the outfield. He's never done that professionally. He's only done that as an amateur. And then we're kind of back to where we were with that logjam again of, all right, Soler, Trout, Moniak, Adele, Ward, and now Schanuel. So again, 6 outfielders. What are we doing? So going to throw this question to you again, Mike. What do you like? What do you not like? What's concerning? What's exciting? You tell me.
Yeah, what I like is obviously the power. What I like is his on-base percentage. And John, what I like is I know he had a 232 batting average with runners in scoring position, but when he hit his home runs, was it 14 of his 34 home runs came with runners on, and he always seems to be somebody that comes through when you need him to. Again, I know 233 batting average with runners in scoring position, but sometimes the eye test is just a whole lot more fun. When you see somebody, hitting a home run, a 3-run home run in the 7th inning with runners on, and you needed that. And that batting average with runners in scoring position also includes what happened in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd inning, right? But it seems like Pete Alonso's got that gear for late inning dramatics. And that's something the Angels just haven't had for a really long time outside of Mike Trout. And I would love to see somebody on this team have that. So that's what I like. What do you like?
I like that he's a threat. I like that he's like, if the Angels signed him, he's your cleanup guy.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Easy. Hands down that he's your cleanup guy. Mike, when it comes to a first baseman, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself because this might be a preference conversation in the next segment. It is a first baseman aging is easier to handle.
Yeah.
Because then, first of all, a lot of guys play first base into their 30s, right? We've seen that with Pujols. I know he didn't have his feet under him because of his legs and his plantar fasciitis, but at least for those first 5 years, he was pretty regularly at first base. And I think with Alonso, that's something he could do until age 35. But first basemen tend to slide into that DH role pretty easily. And so the aging here is something that I do like about Pete Alonso from ages 30 to 35, rather than a Santander when it's like, okay, it's kind of like what we're dealing with Trout right now. When do you hang it up in the outfield and go, hey, dude, you got to DH full time. This is the only way this is going to work. So when it comes to that sort of conversation, I think it is easier for a first baseman to transition into a DH, and first basemen play into their mid-30s quite often. So I think that Alonso would age gracefully, considering the injury history or lack thereof. I think that he would age gracefully. What are you concerned about with Pete Alonso?
It's another right-handed hitter. I get it. He's Pete Alonso. He's powerful. He's awesome. But you're removing a left-handed hitter for a right-handed hitter. And so this is a very righty-dominated lineup. And so that's a concern for me. It's one of the reasons why they're looking at power lefties, as if they could have maybe signed a power lefty that was a part of this team for 6 years. That would have been a really smart move. Now, I love Pete Alonso. Don't get me wrong. I think he all-star guy, bring a lot of fire, but that would be a concern for me. And then the other concern would be is now you have this young guy in Nolan Shonowell that you've had up and you've given him an opportunity, and there's development. Like, that's why we're developing these guys so that they can prove themselves. This kind of cuts him at the knees a little bit because for whatever reason, the Angels decided to go with a more substantive guy there at first base, which they have the right to do. I like Nolan Shonowell. Do I like him over Pete Alonso? I don't think so. Obviously, it would be great to have Pete Alonso on the team.
Right.
But I think Nolan Shonowell deserves a shot to continue to develop because he's not bad. He just needs time. He's only 22 and he's not had any minor league experience, right?
Yeah. It's like I said the other day, a 6'4", 220-pound guy is not going to be the kind of hitter that Shonowell was last year.
Right.
For his whole career.
Right.
He's 22 years old. He's got plenty of time to put on muscle. Look at Trout, right? We're telling him to take off some muscle to get back to who he looked like when he was younger. But Trout put on the muscle as he got older year over year as well. And I think that's something that can happen with Shonowell. It really just depends on what you want. Do you want a power hitter in the cleanup spot in Pete Alonso? Or are you okay with a high average guy that I think Nolan Shonowell can be, like I discussed the other day on our quick hits episode. So lots to consider when it comes to Pete Alonso, and we'll talk about who we prefer in just a minute.
I love going to live events, sports, music, theater, comedy, so much more. Tonight, I'm actually going to see Back to the Future on stage. It's an early birthday gift from my wife. I love that. We got our tickets, Johnny, on Gametime. And right now, Gametime's making it really easy to get tickets for whatever event you want to go to, especially with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff, all the nonsense, all the stuff you don't want to see, only so that you can see the incredible deals on the seats at the places and events that you want to go to. You don't have to scroll through thousands of tickets. They're gonna make sure it's to your preference. With Gametime Picks, I found some really great deals and even got to see where I'm going to sit before buying the seats. The super deal was really impressive, Johnny, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. It's all in the app, so you should download it right now. Take all the guesswork out of your ticket buying. Download the Gametime app right now. Create an account. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, there are some terms that apply, but create an account and redeem with LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Gametime.
All right, it's the moment of truth here on Locked On Angels on a Friday. You know, doing all the easy stuff before the weekend, trying to decide Santander, Pete Alonso, an easy, light conversation to end our show and end our week. Mike, let's get into it. Which do you prefer? Pete Alonso, Anthony Santander, Anthony, whatever you want to say. Which one would you roll with in 2025 and why?
I think Santander fits the team better. And he's a left-handed bat. He's somebody that can come in and be a powerful left-handed bat for this team. And it's what's needed. And then it gives you some options to trade some of the players that we've talked about on this show that you can trade away, perhaps get an arm, or maybe if you're getting that qualifying offer and you're losing the second-round pick, you use a Taylor Ward to get a great prospect from another team and then slide them into AA or AAA. I love Pete Alonso. I would not be mad if he was on this team, but it does feel like an Artie Moreno signing. It does feel like Artie going after the big name, the big guy, placing him at first base. And that doesn't really make sense for this team as it's built, right? If Mike Trout is healthy, then Pete Alonso and Mike Trout would be awesome in this lineup. But I do think that what this lineup needs is a left-handed power bat. That wall in right field is calling Anthony's name, Johnny, and I think he's going to be somebody that could get close to 40 home runs again just because of the short porch, the small wall, and where the home run line is now. Or he's going to be a guy who gets 50 doubles because he's smacking it off that wall on a regular basis. So in Mike's world, I think I'm leaning more towards Santander than Pete Alonso. What about you?
Before I get into it, there was a note that on Santander that everydayer Garrick's Apprentice, who comments on YouTube a lot, but he's also an active person on Reddit, Angels Reddit. And I caught this comment and I thought it was great because somebody said, I'm worried that Santander is going to be another Justin Upton or a Josh Hamilton or a Bobby Abreu or a Raul Ibanez. And Garrick's apprentice responded and said, this comparison of, I'm worried it's going to be like this, is guaranteed to come up for every power outfielder the Angels are rumored to be in on. Last year, it was Teoscar. And you know what Teoscar did, Mike?
What a
Won
great
the home
point.
run derby.
Yep.
Got to the World Series, got re-signed by the Dodgers.
Yep.
So that was a great response by Garrick's apprentice. And first of all, Bobby Abreu was awesome.
He was
what are we
awesome.
talking about?
09 was an awesome year for Bobby Abreu. He wasn't as great in 2010, but he was still really good. 09 was a perfect signing. I don't know what team you were watching, but he
And then Raul Ibanez was a 42-year-old DH only that the Angels signed in 2014 just to have a DH. He was terrible. He was 42 years old, and he got cut by June 21st.
Yeah.
So I don't think Santander is anything like Hamilton, who had some obvious signs of regression back when he got signed. So maybe Upton is the closest comparison, but I think Santander has a better track record or more longevity than Justin Upton, as long as he doesn't stub his toe. I think I'm with you. I love the idea of Alonso just being the cleanup guy.
Yeah.
But I think it moves Shawnuel out. And to me, I think if you're going to make an addition here, I think Santander is the way to go, because you're right. It does open up the possibility of making some trades. And I really like the way you put it. If you can't get a second round pick, then maybe you spend Taylor Ward on getting a guy who was a second round pick, or maybe even a first round pick, depending on how badly a team needs a Taylor Ward or Mickey Moniak or Joe Adell, what have you. So I think at the end of the day, I would go toward Santander. I'm not going to be mad if they sign Pete Alonso. I'm certainly not going to be frustrated with that. And maybe that makes Nolan Shawnuel expendable. Other teams probably like to have a guy who can hit for a high average. Maybe they want to turn him into Luis Ariz, like I discussed the other day. But if I had to choose, if you're going to, tell me right now, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to say Santander for a lot of the reasons you said. He makes sense from a team standpoint, a Perry Manassian trying to make this team better and fit the mold standpoint. Pete Alonso does feel like an Artie Moreno signing, because Artie Moreno would make that kind of deal. So I think depending on who they sign, if they sign, which is another factor in all of this, they could end up with neither one of them. I think it's important to consider that Santander means Perry's in charge. Alonso probably means that Artie is still in charge.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram, because if there's any breaking news regarding Hae-Sung Kim, Pete Alonso, Santander, you know that we're going to be tweeting about it or posting on Instagram about it, and you can get our initial reactions before our show on Monday. If anything happens over the weekend, we'll post our initial reactions for you. Mike, what do we have on deck for Monday's show?
Yeah, we'll talk all about that on Monday if something happens over the weekend. But in the meantime, John, the Halos are actually leading the way in one particular area in baseball that baseball purists and experts say is the wave of the future.
Ooh.
So what is it? We're going to tell you on Monday on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Rad show from a rad dad.
Can't keep the stupid hat on my head, my big freak size head.